Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. and today I'm reviewing Hamlet from Mighty Boards and designed by David Shirkup. This is a Kickstarter, there'll be a link down below, prototype, everything here you see here from rules to components, very much prototype, and especially components. A lot of the things you see here, art, I don't know if it's final yet, but a lot of these components are totally 100% not what you can expect to get, so large, loud disclaimer over there. But with that, let's go ahead and dive into this game and what it is, my thoughts, impressions, all of that stuff. And effectively, this is a city building game. This is a game, a tile laying game, which you're going to be slowly building out a hamlet, a small little village. You're going to be building out what is going into that hamlet, how various things connect across it, as you try to figure out what production chains you're going to generate to ultimately deliver and build the central church over there. There's a lot of ways you can get points, but most of them ultimately come down to those production chains I talked about. You want to build out production chains. You want to utilize others' production chains. Every single turn you're going to be taking actions to add more resources to the board, to convert resources to other resources, to buy buildings, to buy more meeples, these various meeples, your workers, which will earn you additional actions as you go, to buy donkeys to set up your various production chains to move things around the board, because you have to be able to move things around the board. You have to have access from various roads to one location to another. You're going to sit there and build out roads to cross things whenever you otherwise can't. So there's a lot of different things you're trying to manage in the game. In general, what you're going to have is you're going to have core facilities that build out those core resources, your wood, your wheat, your stone. You're going to use those resources to build out these roads across various locations, roads that will help you gain access to other areas to deliver more goods and to set up your buildings and your goods and production chains, as well as to score points at the end of the game for building out your connections to all these other buildings. Additionally, you'll have a variety of refineries in the game. Different refineries that will utilize those resources to turn them into different things. Your wood turns into lumber, your wheat turns into flour, different things like that will open up these other tiles over here. Whenever you open up a new tile type, you're going to add it to the bag, and that will unlock new types of things that will benefit from those production chains, so you can now utilize those for a variety of different things. Whenever you build a building, it's going to require certain resources that you'll have to gather from various locations around the board. Again, you have this not really... It's everyone's resources, so to speak. Everything you build in this game, those resources you build, they're available to anyone. Anyone can take them. When I go ahead and take an action to generate these stones, filling it to max, I'll get 2 coins, which will be helpful to me, but at that point, anyone can utilize those resources. Which is also one of the reasons why it's important to build out those meeples to increase the number of workers you have, because more workers means more actions, which means you can sit there and generate that stone and also in the same turn start using it before others take it away from you. Again, it's not a bad thing for others to take it. You still got your gold, it helps you, and that's fine, but sometimes you want to use it for your own purposes, so having more actions in a row can help you out while doing so. Additionally, throughout the course of the game, as you build those refineries, you're going to use those raw resources and put them into the refinery. So let's say we go ahead and take this and we put it down on the board somewhere. I'm not going to heavily worry about where it goes, although I have a hard time ever playing these games without overthinking, even when I'm just trying to teach you how to play. But from there, we're going to put that refinery down. We're just going to try to gather resources to that refinery. We'll need those connection points, those roads, those donkeys to get what we need there. But then once we do so, we'll go ahead and build out those upgraded goods, which we can utilize for a variety of things. We can use them to make deliveries at the market, which will earn us points at the market. We can make deliveries to the church. We can use them for any number of different things in the game as we try to use these resources that everyone's generating. The nice part is as players build those unique resources as they get them, while other players might take those refined resources from you, you're still going to get the points for your resource being used for those things. So it's this balance of, while we're all working together, while we're all trying to build and we're trying to build the church and build out the hamlet and add more stuff, at the end of the day, while I can use what you've done, you will be rewarded for doing so. And so it's not a semi-co-op, not by any means, but at the same time, it has this, all the stuff is communal while being rewarded for what you did, for what you contributed along the way. You're doing all this to ultimately deliver to the church. We'll get points for the deliveries there. You're going to get points for making deliveries at the market. You're going to get points for various endgame goals. And a whole bunch of tiles have different things on them that will give you specific criteria as to how and why these tiles score. This is a point for every segment connected to mountains, no roads required. So there's a whole bunch of things that will be getting you points in the game, from building the tiles as you move around along these tracks, from making those deliveries, from having networks of your roads connected at the end of the game, setting up those connections across one location to another, and slowly expanding your full reach across the board. You'll have all these different facets going on, all these things you're trying to manage while you go through the game and try to score as many points as possible in Hamlet. As far as my impressions, review, all of that stuff, starting off with ease of play, the rules themselves are fairly easy to go through, not a lot of complexity there. The teaching of the game is a drop not intuitive just because of those communal resources. It might take a round or two to get the full feel of how you're building out this Hamlet, of this idea that as you build things out, you are setting other people up for success. You are doing your own thing, but you're also giving other people roads that they can utilize at times. You're also giving other people resources that they can utilize. You have to be mindful that as you take actions, others can benefit from them, although again, it will still help you as well, so it's not a problem. But that communal aspect, if people haven't played games like that, can be a drop not intuitive. The game time is excellent. Table space, it depends on how many players you're playing, because more stuff will be coming out, but it's fairly decent. But when I say game time is excellent for context, I mean that depending on player count, this game can play in anywhere from, I've had games as low as 40 minutes for a 2-player game, and then even a 3-4 player game, I haven't played 4 players yet, even a 3-player game can come in at under an hour and a half easily, closer to the hour mark. So it's a fairly short game in terms of making it more accessible or easy to dive into. As far as player count, like I said already, have not played at 4. This is a 1 to 4 player game. I have not played the solo mode. I have not played at 4. I've played this at 2 and 3 players. 2 is a faster experience, but with less interaction in the game because of the fact that you're building out this communal experience, so to speak. You're building out a lot of stuff here. I find 3 players adds a lot more to the board, just in terms of the way distance matters, in terms of other people's buildings, in terms of all these other facets going on in the game. So 3 definitely adds more interaction to the experience, while 2 is a game that you can get done in 40-45 minutes. So it has that balance of what you prefer, but I personally prefer it at 3. I like the additional interaction. I like the additional table spaces. More buildings enter the board, more buildings are created, and the Hamlet really gets a distinctive feel as it grows out. As far as what I like, don't like, and can see others not liking. First of all, the depth to game time ratio is excellent. I talked about this already in terms of how quick the game is, but the game, even when you're playing at 3 players, comes in at well under an hour and a half. Maybe not your first game, but as you play it more, and there's a lot of decision space to be made in that hour and a half experience. There's a lot of decision space as far as the pathways you try to score, as well as far as what you're going to go for as your primary objective. Are you going to try to make deliveries to the church? Is that the main area you're going to focus on? Maybe you just focus on the market because the church requires more of a commitment, more of an investment, which means sometimes other players can take the things you are planning on. Whereas if you lock in a bunch of market deliveries, that will give you a lot of points as you go. At the same time, if you're building various tiles, that has a cost as well, and you're going to pay those costs, gather those resources, and get points for building the various tiles on the board. So even just building out the Hamlet has its own reward as you go through the game. You'll also have these endgame points you want to be mindful of, your network you want to be mindful of. There's a lot of stuff to think through. Every single turn has you taking a bunch of actions, but how you use those actions and what you try to pursue as you go through it, there's a lot of min-maxing to go through. Do you want that mountain range? Is that mountain range going to score you extra points? A lot of the tiles are going to give you point scoring in the game, which is a lot of other things to be mindful of. You can sit there and plan to through a 2 or 3 turn sequence or 2 or 3 action sequence of making a delivery, or you can just build 2 tiles. There's a lot of different stuff that will give you points, and figuring out the optimal ways to do so is going to be up to you. And there's a lot of moments to take advantage of those openings. It's a pro and a con in the sense that because of the fact that I can do something on my turn that sets you up for a delivery, it means there's a lot of interaction in the game. There's a lot of being mindful of what other players want to do, how many actions they have, are they likely to be able to do that. Sometimes you'll find yourself holding back from refilling the woodcutter, because as much as you want wood, you know full well that if you build the wood, someone else can take the action they want. Versus if you wait, if you take other actions, if you grab another building, if you build this, if you a number of other options on the table, maybe the other player will be forced to build wood, setting you up for the action at the same time. So there's this very high degree of interaction, very high degree of being mindful of what others are doing and how it benefits you, how your actions benefit them, even though you do get rewarded. Again, in general, most actions of the game do result in you being rewarded no matter what. You'll earn money, you'll earn points, you'll do these things regardless of whether other players take them from you. So it's not that negative in that sense, but nonetheless, sometimes you just want that wood yourself. And so a lot of opportunities to be mindful of what others are doing, to plan around it, and to help yourself on your turn. And like I said already, lots of pathways towards scoring along the way, lots of aspects of things to consider as you try to figure out what is best for you. Do you want to be the first mason? Your brick over there will be stronger and better than other players. You'll get more points for it. But is it worth that? Or maybe you want to sit there and build out 2 extra workers instead, because sure, you won't be as efficient as far as your bricks that you make, but at the same time you'll have extra actions, and extra actions in this game are huge. So what you go for at what point, a lot of decision space in that hour and a half that you're going to be playing. As far as things I don't like, The first one's going to come with a heavy caveat, which is I don't love the very unique shapes you have in the game. This game gives you a lot of unique shapes and structures that will make the game very different, and will, as you build out, you're trying to be mindful of how things combine, and you're playing out these tiles over here, but those also going to start creating openings in the game that are these just weird little constructs going on. And it's a thing I don't like, with a caveat, in the sense that, for me, adding unique and special shapes is kind of a, does it add to the experience? Are you just trying to be different, or does it actually add value? As you dump things into this bag, you can certainly feel around and pick certain shapes, which I'm told is part of the strategy, but that feels counterintuitive to what a bag does for me. If I'm sitting there thinking through, well, I know the diamonds is one of these 3 shapes, then that adds almost a degree of memory to the game that's not what I'm looking for, and so having unique shapes in this bag feels a bit off from what I typically expect when you're pulling random things from a bag to load at the marketplace for the next buildings you can buy. So the unique shapes is something that it feels off-putting to me, because it doesn't add to my experience, and it feels like it's trying to be different for the sake of being different. The caveat aspect is, first of all, it's not that big a deal. It's more nitpicky and bothersome to my OCD tendency of wanting a perfectly laid out board. The caveat is, without going into it, but I pressed the designers about this, and apparently they have expansion plans around that, so there's a reason why the shapes are unique. It's not just being special and unique and different for no other benefit. There are a reason why these shapes are unique that will hopefully come into play in future expansions or whatnot for this game. So it's something I don't like right now, but there is the caveat that as long as there's a reason, it's not that big of a deal. Additionally, the roads versus paths in this game. You see, the various tiles have roads. They have actual roads on them that choosing to connect them or not is a big part of your decision making in the game. Whether you connect a road, how you connect a road, how you set up this hamlet is going to be a big part of what adds to the strategy of what smoothly delivers to one place versus another, how you can get something somewhere else, and do you have to build a road along the way. And then when you build a road, which is great because you have that flexibility so you can build a road, we have these totally different looking pieces that, again, small nitpick so to speak, but I don't love the visual aspect of having a road on tiles that's for connection purposes, but then having just little wooden sticks that go across it as well. I don't have a good balance around that. And again, prototype, I don't know what the final components will look like, but whatever they plan on doing, it's this weird disjointed aspect of having a connection point that matters, that's going to be inconsistent when a player builds it versus when it's printed on the tile. So it's, again, another small little nitpick over there. And similarly, along those lines of accessibility, of clarity and whatnot, is I kind of want to know the production and conversion, the production and refinery buildings at a glance on this board. And I find that when I play this game, as the board grows out, I find that it becomes a little harder to track exactly where the things are that I need to know. Oh, where's that refinery? Where's that refinery? I'm going to have to make a delivery here. I'm going to have to move my donkeys around the board and position myself for the perfect delivery. But first, I'm going to spend 2 minutes trying to find everything I need on the board. It can get a bit cluttered to find all the stuff that you want, and that can take a little bit away from the accessibility that is otherwise in this experience. I have mentioned this to them, and they are looking into ways to making those pop a bit more, to make them more obviously visible. So for right now, it's something that was relevant to myself, but may or may not be relevant to a final copy of this game. As far as things I don't like in this one, first of all, you have to upgrade your actions in the game. At least in my opinion. You have to get more workers. You absolutely have to get those extra actions. If you are running on 2 actions a turn, you're just going to have a much harder time compared to the person that can take 4 or 5 actions on a single turn. You want to upgrade your workers as soon as possible so you can start getting those extra actions. So you can start locking in the extra things that you need done. So you can sit there and build out your quarry and then immediately utilize what you need and immediately utilize those things and set up your donkeys, move them there, and make a delivery. There's a lot of opportunities for clever moves in this game, but those clever moves will shine more and more the more workers that you have and the more actions that you can take. And so if you're someone that wants a little bit more freedom in the choice of upgrading or not, again, I could be wrong, but for myself, it seems like that upgrading your actions as soon as possible and getting as many of them as possible is essential. If you are playing with 2 actions, someone else is playing with 4, you will find yourself running behind very quickly. If it's temporary because you're trying to get that extra refinery to be the first in something else, sure, there's a balance and there's a trade-off. There are decisions around what you do and when, but I feel that that has to be done. Secondly, players will take things from you. For me, it doesn't really bother me because that mechanic in a game, if it does actually deprive you, is one thing. But in this game, when players take things from you, it's either not really a big deal because you are doing something to generate coins, or alternatively, when they do so, you also get rewarded. You get points along the way because your stuff was used. And so it doesn't bother me personally, but if you don't like the idea that you can sit there and plan out your actions, plan out your turn, and do something, that then gets taken from you, that someone else gets that delivery in first, someone uses your thing to do the delivery you wanted to do. Those are things that will happen in this game. It is highly interactive, for better or for worse, so factor that in as far as this is not, a lighter Carcassonne building it. Well, Carcassone's not that light. This is not a lighter tile laying game with not that much interaction. There's a lot of interaction and taking others and denying them in the game. And then lastly, endgame, or the whole game, but mostly endgame, more so endgame, things can devolve into a degree of mathiness in the experience. Meaning, at times you are sitting there thinking through, I can place this over here, and this will earn me 7 points. And if I go ahead and make that delivery, well, that will earn me 8 points. But if I go ahead and forget that, I make 2 market deliveries instead, and build 1 building, that'll earn me, that's going to be 6 points. Meaning, inherently, when you play these games, you're trying to maximize your points, and that's fine. But to a certain extent, it can devolve into just counting up the points any individual action or choice of actions will give you. Now, I find for myself at least, or for our group, we mostly play through somewhat intuitively as we go through the experience, but then when we hit the end game, when we're closing on the last few turns, or it seems to be the last few turns of the game, then yes, at that point we start making that more of an actual counting as opposed to intuitive counting. As opposed to, this seems like the right action, and we haven't really done the math of all the possible options, we just move forward. When we hit endgame, we start doing that math. The game's running to a close, the scores are fairly close, it looks like it's going to come down to who gets this or that, and we start thinking through, but I can get the landscaper, that's going to be an extra 4 points there, and it denies you 4 points there, but I really want to make a delivery to the church, and you start counting up and getting a little mathy. That doesn't bother me that much just because for us or for our group, it's only been the end game where it happens, but factor that in, that there is a little bit of counting. We've still had very fast games, all things considered, so again, not really a problem for me, but worth addressing if that's not something you like in your experiences. As far as final thoughts and rating, Hamlet is an interesting one in the sense that it stands out as being different. The playtime to decision space is great. There's a lot of interactions, a lot of taking advantage of what others are doing. At the same time, it also does these things while also being a little bit on the lighter side, meaning this falls into that space that's historically been hard for me, where it's lighter than some of the heavier games I want, while also being heavier and more interaction than some of the lighter games that I end up playing. So it's one of those games that I don't yet know where it settles completely. I've enjoyed the experience going through it. I like what it's doing so far, and I keep diving into it in terms of trying to figure out a different pathway forward, a different option. Do I want to go with the carpenter and the miller? Do I want to heavily feed the church? Do I want to, go for, I don't know, just heavily delivering to the market the whole game and trying that out? Or just going for all these various tiles that will score you points and ignoring everything else? There are a lot of pathways here, and each time I've played it has been enjoyable, but it's also, again, it falls into a weird space of being a little heavier than some games in the genre, but being lighter than other games in the genre. Overall, this is a 3.5 out of 5 for me. It's one that I'm enjoying, it's one that I'm going through and having fun with, while being, again, in that weird space for me and my personal tastes. As far as other game recommendations, this is one that, well, going back to final thoughts for a second, this is a great, in my opinion, a gateway game to production chaining, to that aspect of having resources that you're contributing to a common market, a common degree of everything going on that you want to take advantage of, which brings us straight back to recommendations, which is just a great gateway or entryway step to games like Keyflower or Roads and Boats. Other games that have that degree of building things out, of building out production chains, of building out a landmass, of trying to be mindful of those things, and this one gives you that experience in a lighter, more accessible package, not a light package, but a lighter and more accessible package. In any case, I am Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you found this helpful, and until next time, have a good one.